Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to introduce you to Swift and iOS's internal mapping mechanism called MapKit. So what I'd like you to do is to start by opening up XCode. You should get a screen just like this one right here. You're going to create a new project. You're going to go to Single View App, click on Next. You can save this wherever you'd like. We're going to start by just calling this maybe map intro. Don't worry about the team, organization name, organization identifier, and all of the other characteristics. Click on Next. This is where it's going to give you an opportunity of where to save this. You can just save it to your desktop or wherever you'd like. Next. I'm just going to resize this a little bit. The next thing we're going to do is we're just going to discuss a little bit about the integrated development environment of XCode. I'm currently running XCode 9.2 with Swift 4, but this should actually be applicable to most of the earlier versions of XCode, as well as Swift 3 and probably Swift 2 as well, and I would assume that not much is going to change in the next iterations, although Apple and their production and development team is quickly changing Swift all of the time. So to begin with, on our left here, we can see all of the individual files that make up the app that we're currently developing. In the middle here, you can see all of the build settings, and these are all of the identifiers for the production team that you'd be working with, the development information. The one that we're most concerned about today is under capabilities. So if you click on that, you can see that all of them as the default are turned off right away on the right-hand side. The maps is the one that we're most focused on. And we can expand this, and we're going to turn on maps. We can see that there are a whole bunch of different identifiers for routing. And we're going to leave those alone for today. Today we're just going to come up with a basic map and making sure that we can get it to show up in an app when we run it. So that's all we need to do to set up the capabilities. We don't even need to worry about all of the other build settings for our project or the different types of targets that we're focused on. Because we chose the single view controller to begin with right at the start, when we created a new app, it will come pre-installed with viewcontroller.swift. The viewcontroller.swift matches up with the view from the view controller that we can see inside the main storyboard. So if we click on the main storyboard to begin with, what we'll see is a blank view controller. On the right-hand side, we can also see towards the bottom right all of the different objects that we can place on our view controller. Things like buttons and labels. Most of these you're probably familiar with. The one that we're going to focus on right now are the maps. I'm going to add a MapKit view, and we can click and drag this out of the object library in the bottom right and drop it into the view controller. So now we have a map view inside of our view controller. We can take a look at the document outline here on the left-hand side and see that the map view, along with the safe area, is inside of our view, and that is inside of our view controller, which is the entire controller that you would see. This would look like a view on or a page on your iPhone. So we now have a map view. We want to make this a little bit larger, so we want it to fill the entire screen. We're going to do that by clicking on the pin constraints near the bottom right of our view controller in the middle inside view. So if we click on that, we notice that we have a whole bunch of options. It's suggesting that our top constraint is 189, left-hand side is 67, right-hand side is 68, and 330 from the bottom. We're going to change the left-hand side to be 0, the same with the right, and the same with the bottom. We will constrain this to the margins and add these 3 constraints by clicking on the bottom button. this will give us an error saying that the top, it's not quite sure where the top is supposed to be. We can identify that there is a problem with the constraints by a little red arrow in the top left of the document outline. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to pin the top of our map view to our view controller. Now, if we did that inside the pin, inside this new constraints little pop-up, what would happen is it would try to pin it to the safe area, and there's a little problem with that. So what we're going to do instead is we are going to click on the map view in our document outline. We're next going to right-click, drag, and drop directly on the view. You'll notice that 3 of the dots are listed. We are going to click the top space to the safe area, and that now pins this, not exactly where we want it to be, but it's pretty close. Make sure that your size inspector is clicked on in the top hand right. You'll see a little ruler and it should be outlined in blue. This is called your size inspector. If we scroll down a little bit, we should see the 4 different constraints that we placed. The align trailing to the safe area would be the right hand side. The align leading to the safe area is the left hand side. The align bottom to the safe area is obviously the bottom. And the align top to safe area, which is currently equal to 189. Yours might be a little bit different depending on where you place the MapKit view to begin with, is this gap at the top, this white gap. So we're going to edit that by clicking on the edit, and we're going to change 189 or whatever your number is to 0 and press enter or return, and now it's pinned exactly in place. And essentially this means that our map view is filling up the entire screen. So that's pretty much it. We now have a view controller that has a map view sitting inside of it, which fills up the entire screen. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to move to our view controller in the documents listing on the left-hand side, and we are going to add an import just underneath the import UI kit. We are going to say import, and we are going to put in MapKit, and that should be auto-suggested for us, and we can simply press tab or return once it's highlighted. And what this does is it basically says that our view controller is going to be using the entire MapKit library. These are all predefined classes built by Apple so that we can do things like centering our maps and placing little icons on the maps, or we can do a whole bunch of different things that we're going to see in a few future videos. But for now, we just need that as a part of our UI view controller, which is class named as view controller. And that means that there won't be any bugs, or there won't be a crashing of the app by placing the map in our storyboard that we just placed and constrained to the top, bottom, left, and right, and the view controller code that is sitting in behind it and actually making the map work. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to run it. We're going to see what this looks like inside the simulator. Now, in the top left, we will see the active scheme. This means the simulator that the app is going to be run on. We can choose a variety of different types of simulators. So we're going to choose the iPhone X, and the default is probably iPhone X or an iPhone 8. And then we're just going to press the little play button in the top left-hand corner. And this will run the app inside the simulator. Now, what I would suggest is that you run your app right off the start. At the start of class, open up your simulator and get it running, because it does oftentimes take a long time to compile this, open up the simulator and get it running. So if we do it right away, what we should see is a little window open, and it will take a little bit of time, even when it's open, to run the app. And there we go. So when we open it up, we now have a map. We can interact with it by clicking on our mouse, dragging it all over the place. We can also do things like zooming in and zooming out by using the Alt-Option key on your keyboard and our mouse at the same time. If I hold the Alt-Option key, you'll notice that we get these two little dots. Those would represent the finger touch on your actual iOS device, whether it's an iPad or an iPhone. And by clicking our mouse, we can then zoom in and out, we can rotate, we can do a whole bunch of different stuff with this. So that concludes the first part of our MapKit class and introducing you to placing maps inside an iOS device.